The Velthary warship moved through space like a predator hunting in dark waters. It was massive, nearly 2 miles long, covered in black armor that absorbed light rather than reflected it. Inside, thousands of Velthary soldiers went about their duties with the quiet confidence of conquerors. They had taken 17 star systems. They had never lost a war. They believed themselves to be the greatest military force in the known galaxy. General Cothran stood on the command bridge, watching the stars drift past the observation windows. He was tall, even by Velthary standards, standing nearly 8 feet with scales the color of dried blood. 4 yellow eyes sat in a face that had never learned to smile. He had commanded this fleet for 30 years and had personally overseen the subjugation of 6 different species. None of them had presented any real challenge. A junior officer approached and bowed low. "General, we have recovered a survivor from the human vessel." Cothran turned slowly. "Only one?" "The others resisted, sir. They were eliminated during boarding operations." "Bring the survivor to me." The human arrived minutes later, dragged between 2 Velthary guards who each stood 3 feet taller than their prisoner. Her name, according to the translation device, was Megan Cole. She was female, young by human standards, with brown hair that fell in messy tangles and eyes the color of forest earth. She wore the torn remains of a civilian jumpsuit, stained with smoke and what might have been blood. The guards threw her to the floor before the general's feet. She landed hard, grunted, and then slowly pushed herself up to a sitting position. She looked around the bridge, taking in the alien technology, the armed soldiers, and the massive general looming above her. Then she yawned. Commander Dreth, the general's second in command, stepped forward with anger burning in his eyes. "You dare show such disrespect? You kneel before General Cothran, conqueror of the Hollow Nebula, destroyer of the Keth Federation, supreme commander of the 3rd Expansion Fleet?" Megan scratched her head and looked up at him. "That's a lot of titles. Does he have a business card, or do you just follow him around announcing all that?" The bridge went silent. No one had ever spoken to a Velthary officer this way. The soldiers exchanged uncertain glances, their hands moving toward their weapons. Cothran raised one clawed hand, stopping any violence before it could begin. He studied this small creature with growing curiosity. Every species they had conquered had shown fear at this point. The Keth had wept. The Morvani had begged. The Sylph had simply collapsed into catatonic shock. This human showed none of those reactions. "You are the last of your crew," he said, his voice deep and cold. "Your ship strayed into restricted space. Your companions chose to fight rather than surrender. They are dead. You alone survive." "Yeah, I figured that out when the shooting stopped and nobody came to untie me," Megan replied. She climbed to her feet, ignoring the guards who tensed at her movement. "So what happens now? Torture? Execution?" "Long, boring speech about your empire's greatness. That depends entirely on you." Cothran stepped closer, using his height to intimidate. "You will tell me everything about Earth's defensive capabilities, fleet positions, weapons systems, population centers, everything." Megan looked up at him. She had to crane her neck to meet his eyes, but she did not look away. "I'm a cargo hauler. I was transporting medical supplies to a mining colony." "I don't know anything about military stuff. You are lying." "I'm really not," she shrugged. "I dropped out of school at 17, got my pilot's license at 20, and I've been flying freight ever since. The most dangerous thing I usually deal with is expired protein bars." Dreth moved forward and backhanded her across the face. The blow was hard enough to knock her sideways, and she hit the deck with a heavy thud. Blood dripped from a cut on her lip. The bridge crew waited for the screaming to begin, for the begging and the tears that always came when prisoners understood their situation. Megan spat blood onto the polished floor and laughed. "That's it?" She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and stood up again. "My grandmother hit harder than that, and she had arthritis." Dreth's scales flushed purple with rage. He reached for his sidearm, but Cothran's voice stopped him cold. "Enough." The general circled Megan slowly, examining her the way a scientist might examine an interesting specimen. She did not flinch, did not tremble, did not show any sign of the fear that should have been overwhelming her nervous system. "I have studied your species," Catherine said. "Earth is classified as a Category 7 death world. The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere is corrosive. The surface is covered with predators, parasites, and poisonous plants. Your own star bombards you with radiation that would kill most species within hours of exposure." "We call that Tuesday," Megan said. "Your evolutionary history is a nightmare. You developed as pursuit predators, chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. You competed with carnivores that outweighed you by a factor of 10. You survived ice ages, supervolcanic eruptions, and asteroid impacts that wiped out the dominant species of your planet. The dinosaurs weren't that impressive. Tiny arms." Catherine stopped directly in front of her. "You should be afraid of me. I have killed thousands. I have ordered the destruction of entire cities. I could end your life with a single word." Megan met his gaze with absolute steadiness. "Then do it." The words hung in the air like a challenge. "I said do it." She stepped closer to him, close enough that his guards raised their weapons in alarm. "Kill me right here, right now. What are you waiting for?" Catherine did not move. "That's what I thought." Megan smiled, and there was something dangerous in that expression. "You need me alive. You need information. And you've never dealt with a human before? So you don't know how to break me. Here's a free tip, General. You can't." She turned and walked toward the observation window, ignoring the weapons pointed at her back. The stars gleamed against the endless black of space, and she watched them with something like homesickness in her eyes. "I was supposed to be at my brother's birthday party tomorrow," she said quietly. "He's turning 30. I bought him a vintage guitar, the kind he's wanted since we were kids. It's probably floating in pieces somewhere out there now, along with everyone else on my ship." She turned back to face the general. "So let me tell you something about humans, since you seem curious. We don't break easy. We've been through ice ages and plagues and world wars. We've survived everything the universe has thrown at us, and we're still here. You can threaten me, hurt me, kill me, and it won't change anything. Because even if I die, there are 8 billion more just like me back home. And every single one of them is just as stubborn as I am." She sat down on the deck, crossing her legs casually. "Oh, so do whatever you're going to do. General, hurry. I hate waiting." Catherine stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned to his guards. "Take her to holding cell 7. Maximum security protocols." As they dragged her away, he noticed that she was humming a song to herself. Her lip was still bleeding, her wrists were bruised from restraints, and she had just been sentenced to the most brutal detention, a facility on his ship, and she was humming. General Catherine had conquered 6 species and never felt anything resembling doubt. But as he watched this small human disappear through the bridge doors, something cold settled in his stomach. He had made a mistake, he realized. He just did not know what it was yet. Holding Cell 7 was designed to destroy minds. The Velthari had perfected the art of psychological torture over centuries of conquest, and this cell represented their greatest achievement. The walls were smooth gray metal that seemed to press inward. The ceiling was too low for comfort. There were no windows, no furniture, and no way to mark the passage of time. The temperature changed without warning. 1 hour it would drop below freezing, coating the walls with frost and turning breath into clouds of mist. The next hour it would climb until the air felt like fire in the lungs. The lights never dimmed, blazing with constant brightness that made sleep almost impossible. Food and water arrived at random intervals, sometimes twice in an hour, sometimes not for days. The cell had broken enemy commanders in less than a week. Hardened warriors had begged for death after 10 days. The longest anyone had ever lasted was 16 days, and that prisoner had been reduced to a mumbling wreck who could not remember his own name. Megan. Cole had been in holding cell 7 for 4 days. The guard assigned to monitor her cell was named Veteran, a young soldier who had never seen combat. He sat at his station, watching the feed from the cell's cameras, and he was deeply confused. The human was exercising. She had somehow figured out the temperature cycle and was using it to her advantage. During the cold periods, she did something called jumping jacks and push-ups. movements that kept her body warm through constant motion. During the hot periods, she sat still, breathing slowly. Conserving energy, she had torn strips from her jumpsuit to make a blindfold, which she wore during what she had decided were her sleeping hours. The constant lights no longer affected her because she had simply blocked them out. When food arrived, she ate exactly half of it, saving the rest for later. When no food came, she did not complain. She simply tightened the makeshift belt around her waist and continued her exercises. On the morning of the 5th day, General Cothron came to see for himself. He stood beside Vethrin and watched the monitor. Megan was in the middle of the cold cycle, doing push-ups with mechanical precision. Her breath clouded the air with each exhale. Her arms trembled with fatigue, but she did not stop. 97, 98, 99, 100. She collapsed onto the frost-covered floor, rolled onto her back and laughed. New record. Cothran entered the cell. The cold hit him immediately, and he wrapped his thermal cloak tighter around his shoulders. Velthari were warm-blooded, but poorly adapted to temperature extremes. This cell would be uncomfortable for him even in a brief visit. Megan sat up and grinned at him. Her lips were slightly blue, and her skin was pale, but her eyes were bright and alert. "General," she said, "nice of you to visit. Sorry about the mess, but the maid hasn't come by yet." "You should be dead," Cothran said. "Or insane. No one survives this cell intact. I grew up in Arizona." Megan stretched her arms above her head, working out the stiffness. "Desert climate. Summer days hit 120 degrees. Winter nights drop below freezing. This is basically a vacation. You are lying to yourself. Your body is failing." "My body has been failing since I was born. That's what bodies do. The trick is to fail slower than the other guy." She stood up and faced him. "So, are we doing the torture thing now? Because I've got to warn you, I have a pretty high pain tolerance. Broke my leg in 3 places when I was 12. Set the bone myself because the nearest hospital was 4 hours away." Cothran drew his ceremonial blade. The metal was ancient, passed down through his family for generations, and it had ended more lives than he could count. The edge gleamed even in the harsh white light of the cell. "I did not want to do this," he said. "I had hoped isolation would be sufficient, but you have proven remarkably resistant." "Thanks. I've been working on that." Pressed the blade against her throat. A thin line of red appeared where the edge touched her skin. "Tell me about Earth's defenses," he said. "Fleet positions, weapon capabilities, strategic vulnerabilities. Tell me everything and this will end." Megan looked at the blade, then back at him. "Can I ask you something first?" "Speak. Why do you want Earth so badly? I mean, you've got 17 star systems already. What's one more planet going to do for you?" Cothran paused. It was not the question he had expected. "Expansion is the nature of empire," he said finally. "To stop growing is to begin dying. Earth sits at a strategic junction point between 3 major trade routes. Controlling it would give us access to resources and territory that would secure Velthari dominance for centuries. So it's about power. It is about survival. The galaxy is vast and hostile. If we do not conquer others, we will eventually be conquered ourselves." Megan nodded slowly. "You know, my grandfather used to say something similar. He grew up during the wars, back when humans were still fighting each other over territory. He said the strong survive and the weak get eaten. Your grandfather was wise. My grandfather was wrong." She met his eyes without flinching, despite the blade at her throat. He died alone, bitter, with no friends and children who hated him. Turns out being strong doesn't mean much if you have nothing worth fighting for. Cothran pressed the blade harder. More blood appeared. Enough philosophy. "Tell me what I want to know." "I already did. I'm a cargo hauler. I don't know military secrets." She smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. "But let me tell you what I do know. I know that humans have been fighting wars since before we figured out how to write. I know that we've developed weapons that can crack planets open like eggs. I know that every time someone tries to conquer us, we get angry. And when humans get angry, we don't stop until the threat is gone. She leaned into the blade, letting it cut deeper. I know that right now. My government is probably wondering what happened to my ship. I know that they're going to come looking. And I know that when they find out what you've done, they're not going to send diplomats. Catherine pulled the blade back. Blood ran down Megan's neck, but she did not seem to notice. You were trying to frighten me, he said. I'm trying to warn you. There's a difference. She wiped the blood away with her hand and looked at it curiously. You've conquered 17 systems. Good for you, but you've never fought humans before. And you have no idea what you're getting into. We have conquered species far more advanced than yours. Advanced doesn't mean dangerous. Megan sat back down on the floor, crossing her legs. Here's the thing about humans, General. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy. We're not the smartest or the fastest or the most technologically developed, but we're the most stubborn. We don't know how to quit. It's not in our DNA. She looked up at him with something like pity. Could kill me right now. It wouldn't change anything. There are billions more where I came from, and every single one of them will fight you to the last breath. Not because they think they'll win. Because giving up isn't something we know how to do. The cell fell silent except for the hum of the ventilation system. Catherine sheathed his blade. He had killed prisoners before, many times. It had never bothered him. But something about this human made him hesitate, and he did not understand why. You will break eventually, he said. Everyone breaks. Maybe, Megan shrugged. But I won't break today. And tomorrow doesn't look good either. So you might want to clear your schedule. The general left without another word. Behind him, Megan began doing push-ups again, counting softly under her breath. She was still counting when the guards came to check on her 6 hours later. She did not stop. The combat arena sat at the heart of the warship. A circular space nearly 200 feet across with walls of reinforced steel that rose 30 feet to a viewing gallery. This was where Velthari soldiers trained, where disputes of honor were settled, and where prisoners were sometimes sent to die for the entertainment of the crew. General Deziran had ordered the entire senior staff to attend. Nearly 300 Velthari officers filled the gallery, their scales gleaming under the harsh arena lights. They whispered among themselves, curious about the human prisoner who had somehow survived 10 days in holding Cell 7 without breaking. Megan was brought in through the main gate. She walked without assistance, despite the guards flanking her on both sides. She had lost weight during her confinement, her cheeks hollow and her collarbone sharp beneath her torn jumpsuit. But her eyes were clear, and she moved with the easy confidence of someone who had nothing left to fear. The crowd fell silent as she reached the center of the arena. Catherine stood at the edge of the gallery, looking down at her. You have resisted every attempt at interrogation. You have mocked our hospitality and insulted our officers. You have proven yourself to be either very brave or very stupid. Can it be both? Megan called back. A ripple of something that might have been amusement passed through the watching officers. You claim that humans are survivors, Catherine continued. That your Deathworld has made you impossible to break. Today we will test that claim. He raised one hand. And a gate on the far side of the arena began to open. Megan turned to face it. The creature that emerged was called a Vrainth, and it was the most dangerous predator in the Velthari military's arsenal. It stood 5 feet tall at the shoulder, with 6 muscular legs and a body covered in armored scales. Its head was dominated by jaws that could crush steel, and its eyes burned with the dull hunger of a beast bred for killing. One human, Catherine announced. One Vrainth. Let us see which survives. The Vrainth stalked forward, its claws clicking against the arena floor. It was testing the air, catching Megan's scent, analyzing her as prey. Megan did not run. She watched the creature approach with the calm attention of someone studying a problem. Hey, big guy, she said softly. You're pretty, aren't you? The Vrainth lunged. Megan threw herself sideways, rolling across the floor and coming up in a crouch. The beast's jaws snapped shut on empty air. It spun to face her with a snarl of frustration. She was already moving, circling to keep distance between them. Her eyes scanned the arena, looking for anything she could use as a weapon. The walls were smooth steel. The floor was bare concrete. There was nothing. The Vrainth charged again. This time Megan ran directly at it, dropping flat at the last moment and sliding beneath its body. Her hands found the creature's hind leg, and she twisted with all her strength. The Vrenth stumbled, caught off balance. It crashed into the arena wall with a boom that shook the gallery. Megan was already on her feet, breathing hard but steady. A cut on her arm dripped blood where the creature's scales had scraped her during the slide. "Come on," she said. "Is that all you've got?" In the gallery, Commander Dreth leaned toward Kothrin. "She cannot win. The Vrenth will tire her out and tear her apart," Kothrin replied. His eyes never left the arena floor. The Vrenth recovered and began stalking again, more cautious now. It had learned that this prey was not like the others. This prey fought back. Megan was studying the creature in return. She noted the way it favored its front legs, the slight hesitation before each lunge, the way its eyes tracked movement. She was cataloging weaknesses, building a profile, turning instinct into strategy. On Earth, she called out loud enough for the gallery to hear, "We have something called a wolf. 4 legs, big teeth, pack hunters. They used to be the top predators in most of the world." The Vrenth circled left. Megan matched its movement, keeping the distance constant. "When humans first met wolves, they killed each other. Wolves ate our children. We hunted them with spears and fire. It was war, and it lasted for thousands of years." The beast feinted forward. Megan dodged back, never taking her eyes off it. But then something strange happened. Some of the wolves started hanging around our camps, eating our scraps, and some of the humans started feeding them on purpose. Over time, those wolves became dogs. We bred them, trained them, made them part of our families. She smiled, and there was something fierce in it. "Do you understand what I'm telling you? Humans took the most dangerous predator on our planet and turned it into a pet. We didn't just survive wolves. We made them our friends." Vrenth attacked. This time Megan did not dodge. She stepped forward inside the arc of its jaws and drove her elbow into the soft spot beneath its chin. The impact snapped the creature's head back, and she followed with a kick to its front knee joint. The Vrenth howled and stumbled. Megan kept hitting, targeting the vulnerable points she had identified during their deadly dance. She struck the eyes, the throat, the joints where armor plates met. Each blow was precise, calculated, devastating. The creature lashed out with its claws, catching her across the ribs. Megan grunted with pain but did not stop. Blood soaked through her jumpsuit, but she kept fighting. "Your pet is impressive," she gasped between strikes. "But it's been bred for size and strength. It's never had to hunt anything that fights back this hard." She grabbed the creature's jaw with both hands, planted her feet, and twisted. The Vrenth's neck bent at an angle that nature never intended. There was a sharp crack, and the beast collapsed. Silence filled the arena. Megan stood over the dead creature, swaying slightly. Her arms were covered in blood, some of it hers, and some of it the Vrenth's. 3 deep claw wounds ran across her torso, and she was breathing in short, painful gasps, but she was alive. She looked up at General Kothrin and raised her voice. "That's one. Do you want to send another?" The gallery erupted in chaos. Officers shouted at each other, some in outrage and others in something that might have been admiration. No one had ever killed a Varanth in single combat. It was supposed to be impossible. Kothrin raised his hand for silence. "Send 2 more," he ordered. 2 more gates opened. 2 more Vrenths emerged, their eyes fixed on the bleeding human in the center of the arena. Megan laughed. It was a ragged sound, full of pain and exhaustion, but it was genuine. "Now we're talking," she said. She turned to face her new enemies. The fight that followed would become legend among the Velthari. The human female, wounded and unarmed, facing 2 of the deadliest predators in the Empire. She could not win. Everyone knew she could not win, but she fought anyway. She used the dead Vrenth as cover, forcing the living ones to work around it. She threw herself beneath their attacks, exploiting their size against them. She found the arena's drainage grate and tore it loose, giving herself a weapon at last. When it was over, 2 more Vrenths lay dead, and Megan Cole stood in the center of a pool of blood, barely conscious. holding a bent piece of metal in hands that could no longer close properly. "Anyone else?" she whispered. Then she collapsed. The arena fell silent. 300 Velthari officers stared at the broken body on the floor, and not one of them could find words. General Cawthron looked at his supreme military force, then back at the human who had just killed 3 of their finest weapons with her bare hands. "Take her to medical," he said quietly. "Keep her alive." Commander Dreth stepped forward. "Sir, she is just a prisoner." "Let her die." Cawthron turned to face him. "That prisoner just accomplished something that none of our soldiers have ever done. She is worth more alive than dead." He looked back at the arena, at the bodies of the Vrenths and the blood-soaked floor. "And if she is representative of her species," he added softly, "then we have made a terrible mistake." General Cawthron could not sleep. For 3 days after the arena fight, he lay in his quarters and stared at the ceiling, his mind turning the same questions over and over like stones in a river. The human female had killed 3 Vrenths. This should not have been possible. The Vrenths were engineered predators, designed over centuries to be perfect killing machines. They had pacified entire rebellions. They had hunted down enemy commanders in fortified bunkers. They had never been defeated by a single opponent, and yet a wounded, starving, unarmed human had killed 3 of them using nothing but her hands and her will to survive. Cawthron rose from his bed and walked to his private terminal. He pulled up every file the Velthari Empire had collected on humanity and began to read. What he found kept him awake for another 3 days. Earth's history was written in blood. Humans had been at war with each other since before they developed writing. They fought over territory, over resources, over ideas, over gods, over imaginary lines drawn on maps. They had invented increasingly efficient ways to kill each other, progressing from rocks and sticks to weapons that could level cities in a single flash of light. They had developed something called nuclear weapons, devices that split atoms to create explosions powerful enough to destroy everything within miles. They had used these weapons on themselves, twice, and then they had built more. They had survived ice ages that covered half their planet in frozen death. They had survived supervolcanic eruptions that blocked out their sun for years. They had survived plagues that killed 30% of their population and come back stronger. Their bodies were impossible. They could survive injuries that would kill any Velthari instantly. They could lose limbs and continue fighting. They could push through pain that would send other species into shock. Their immune systems fought off infections. Their bones healed themselves. And their brains could rewire after damage. They did not hibernate. They did not migrate. When their environment became hostile, they did not adapt their behavior to fit it. They adapted the environment to fit them. Cawthron found records of humans living in frozen wastelands where temperatures dropped far below freezing. He found records of humans living in deserts where the heat would kill a Velthari in ours. He found records of humans living underwater, underground, in the sky, in the vacuum of space itself. Wherever they went, they survived. Whatever tried to kill them, they overcame. But what disturbed Cawthron most was not their physical resilience. It was their psychological makeup. Humans formed bonds. They created groups based not on biological relation, but on shared experience, shared belief, shared purpose. They would die for these groups. They would kill for them. And when members of their groups were threatened, they responded with a fury that defied all rational calculation. Cawthron found records of human soldiers throwing themselves onto explosive devices to save their companions. He found records of humans charging into certain death rather than abandoning wounded friends. He found records of entire populations rising up against vastly superior occupying forces, fighting with rocks and farm tools against advanced weapons, and winning through sheer refusal to surrender. They had a word for this behavior. They called it love. Cawthron did not understand love. The Velthari reproduced through carefully managed genetic programs, selecting for traits that served the Empire. They did not form emotional attachments. They did not sacrifice themselves for others. The very concept was alien to them, but humans built their entire civilization on it. He called a meeting of his senior staff. They gathered in the war room, a space dominated by a massive holographic display, showing the current position of the fleet. 17 star systems glowed green, indicating Velthari control. Earth glowed red, marking it as a target. "I have completed my analysis of humanity," Kothrin announced. "We cannot invade their homeworld." The officers erupted in protest. Commander Dreth spoke loudest. "Sir, this is madness. We have never retreated from a conquest. Our fleet is unmatched in firepower. The humans have nothing that can stand against us. Humans do not need weapons to defeat us," Kothrin replied. "They are weapons." He activated the display, showing footage from the arena fight. The officers watched in silence as Megan Cole killed 3 Vrants, with nothing but her bare hands and her will to survive. "This female is not a soldier," Kothrin said. "She is a civilian cargo hauler with no military training. She was wounded, starved, and exhausted. And she killed 3 of our finest predators." He changed the display to show Earth's history. Images of human warfare filled the room. Battles that killed millions. Weapons that could crack planets. Soldiers who kept fighting after losing limbs, after losing blood, after losing everything except their determination. "Every human is like this," he continued. "Not as skilled, perhaps. Not as strong. But equally stubborn. Equally impossible to break." Turned to face his staff directly. "If we invade Earth, we will win the first battle. Our fleet is superior. Our weapons are more advanced. We will destroy their military installations and kill their soldiers by the millions." He paused, "and then we will lose the war." The room fell silent. "Humans do not surrender," Kothrin said. "It is not in their nature. When we occupy their cities, they will fight us in the streets. When we destroy their streets, they will fight us in the rubble. When we kill their soldiers, their civilians will pick up weapons and become soldiers. Every human we kill will have family and friends who will dedicate their lives to revenge." He changed the display again, showing projections based on his analysis. Within 1 year of invasion, we will have lost 40% of our ground forces. Within 5 years, we will have lost our ability to maintain occupation. Within 10 years, the humans will have reverse-engineered our technology and begun launching attacks against our other systems. The numbers hung in the air, damning and undeniable. "They will not stop," Kothrin said quietly. "They will never stop. Even if it takes them 1,000 years, they will keep fighting until every Velthari is dead or they have achieved victory. Because giving up is simply not something they know how to do." Commander Dreth stepped forward, his scales pale with shock. "Then what do you propose?" "We cannot show weakness. The other species we have conquered. We'll see it as an opportunity to rebel. Propose something the Velthari Empire has never done before." Kothrin deactivated the display and stood in the darkness that followed. "I propose that we make peace." The words hung in the silence like a death sentence. The human female spoke of trade routes and resource sharing. He continued, "Earth sits at a strategic junction. If we cannot conquer it, perhaps we can make use of it through other means. You want to negotiate with them, as equals? I want to avoid a war that would destroy us." Kothrin moved to the observation window and looked out at the stars. "The human said something to me in her cell. She said that being strong means nothing if you have nothing worth fighting for. I did not understand her then. I think I am beginning to understand now." He turned back to face his officers. "The Velthari Empire has conquered 17 star systems through military might. We have spread across the galaxy like a fire, consuming everything in our path. But fires eventually burn themselves out." He walked among them, meeting each officer's eyes in turn. "Humanity offers us something different. Something we have never considered. The possibility of growth through cooperation rather than conquest. The chance to build something that will last longer than our supply of enemies." He stopped at the center of the room. "I am not asking you to become soft. I am asking you to be smart. The human female defeated our greatest predators because she was willing to adapt, to think, to find solutions that we never expected. Perhaps it is time we learn to do the same. The officers exchanged uncertain glances. This was not the Velthiri way. This was not how empires were built. But looking at the projection data, at the endless human history of survival against impossible odds, none of them could argue with the general's logic. "What would you have us do?" Dreth asked finally. Catherine smiled. It was not a warm expression, but it was the closest thing to hope his face had ever shown. "Kt. Bring me the human. It is time we had a different kind of conversation." The medical bay was quiet when Megan woke up. She lay in something that felt like a bed, but was clearly designed for a body shaped very differently from hers. Strange machines hummed around her, lights blinking in patterns she did not understand. Her entire torso was wrapped in bandages that tingled with some kind of healing agent. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through her ribs, sharp and hot, and she fell back with a groan. "You should not move," a voice said. "Your injuries are severe." Megan turned her head and found a Velthiri standing beside her bed. This one was smaller than the soldiers she had encountered, with scales that shimmered blue-green rather than the military brown. A medical officer, she guessed. "How bad?" she asked. 3 broken ribs. Severe lacerations across your torso. Significant blood loss. Minor concussion. The medical officer consulted a device in its hand. "You should have died in that arena. I've been told that before." Megan managed a weak smile. "How long was I out?" 2 days. The general has requested your presence when you were able to stand." "Another interrogation?" "I do not know." He did not explain his reasons. Megan lay still for a moment, taking stock of her body. Everything hurt, but the pain was manageable. The tingling bandages were doing something useful, speeding up healing in ways that earth medicine could not match. "Help me up," she said. The medical officer hesitated. "You are not recovered. Your injuries require at least another week of rest. The general wants to see me now." Megan pushed herself up despite the pain, swinging her legs over the side of the bed. "I've worked through worse. Just give me something for the pain and point me in the right direction." 20 minutes later, she stood outside General Kothron's private quarters. 2 guards flanked the door, their weapons holstered but visible. They watched her approach with expressions that might have been curiosity. "The general is expecting you," one of them said. The door opened, and Megan stepped inside. Catherine's quarters were larger than she had expected. The main room contained a massive desk covered with holographic displays, several pieces of furniture scaled for Velthiri bodies, and a wall of windows looking out into space. The general stood by these windows, his back to her, watching the stars drift past. "Please sit," he said, without turning. "I imagine standing is painful." Megan found a chair and lowered herself into it carefully. The seat was too large and the wrong shape, but it was better than standing. "I have studied your species extensively over the past few days," Catherine said. "I have read your history, analyzed your biology, and attempted to understand your psychology. I have reached several conclusions." He turned to face her. "The first conclusion is that invading Earth would be a catastrophic mistake. Your people are too resilient, too stubborn, too willing to sacrifice themselves for their cause. Any war between our species would be long, bloody, and ultimately unwinnable for either side." Megan watched him carefully but said nothing. "The second conclusion is that you were telling the truth during your interrogation. You are not a soldier. You have no military knowledge. Torturing you further would serve no purpose." "Nice of you to figure that out," Megan said. "What's the third conclusion?" Catherine walked to his desk and activated one of the holographic displays. A star map appeared, showing dozens of worlds scattered across multiple systems. "The third conclusion is that humanity could be useful to the Velthiri Empire in ways I had not previously considered." Megan raised an eyebrow. "You want to make us servants? Slaves?" "I want to make you partners." "What?" The word hung in the air between them. "These are worlds we have claimed but cannot colonize," Catherine explained, gesturing at the map. "The environments are too hostile. Extreme temperatures, toxic atmospheres, high gravity, dangerous wildlife. Our soldiers can secure them temporarily, but permanent settlement is impossible." He zoomed in on one particular planet, a harsh orange sphere covered in volcanic activity. This world has mineral deposits worth more than most of our existing colonies combined. We have sent 3 expeditions. All of them failed. The heat, the seismic activity, the corrosive air. Our people cannot survive there long enough to extract the resources. He turned to look at Megan, but humans could. Megan studied the map. She thought about Arizona, about the desert heat and the rattlesnakes and the way her grandfather had taught her to find water in places where nothing should have lived. "You want to give us these worlds?" she said slowly. "In exchange for what?" "Alliance, trade, mutual defense." Catherine deactivated the display and sat down across from her. "The galaxy is vast, and the Velthari Empire has made many enemies. We have conquered through strength alone, but strength has limits. Your species has demonstrated something we lack, the ability to endure anything, adapt to any environment, overcome any obstacle. And you think we'd agree to this? After you killed my crew? After you tortured me? I think you are pragmatic enough to see the value of the offer." Catherine met her eyes directly. "And I think your government would prefer expansion through cooperation rather than conquest. The alternative is a war that would cost millions of lives on both sides." Megan was quiet for a long moment. She thought about her crew, about the people who had died when the Velthari boarded her ship. She thought about the holding cell and the arena and the creatures she had killed with her bare hands. She also thought about the mining colonies struggling to survive on marginal worlds. She thought about the crowded cities on Earth, the resource shortages, the endless competition for living space. She thought about what it would mean to have access to dozens of new worlds, rich in minerals and free for the taking. "I'm a cargo hauler," she said finally. "I don't have any authority to negotiate treaties." "No, but you could carry a message." Catherine reached into his desk and withdrew a small device. A data crystal that glowed with soft blue light. "This contains my formal proposal, along with all supporting documentation. Technical specifications for the worlds we offer. Trade terms. Defense commitments. Everything your government would need to evaluate the opportunity." He held it out to her. "I am asking you to take this to Earth, to speak with your leaders, to tell them what you have seen here and what you believe about our intentions." Megan looked at the crystal, but did not take it. "You threatened to kill me," she said. "Multiple times. You threw me into a torture cell and made me fight monsters for entertainment. Why would I help you? Because you understand survival." Catherine set the crystal on the desk between them. "You understand that sometimes the best way to defeat an enemy is to make them an ally. You understand that pride is worthless if it leads to extinction." He leaned back in his chair. "Wait. I made mistakes with you. I underestimated your species and treated you as I would have treated any other conquered people. This was wrong, and I acknowledge it. Is that an apology?" "It is an admission of error. Apologies are not part of Velthari culture." He paused. "But if it would help, I am willing to attempt one." Despite everything, Megan found herself smiling. "You know what? Keep it." She picked up the crystal and turned it over in her hands. "Apologies don't mean much anyway. Actions do." She stood up, wincing at the pain in her ribs. "I'll take your message. I'll talk to whoever will listen. But I'm not promising anything. My government will make their own decision, and it might not be the one you want." Catherine rose as well. "That is all I ask." They stood facing each other, 2 representatives of species that had nearly gone to war. The Velthari general who had conquered 6 worlds, and the human cargo hauler who had killed 3 of his finest to seek predators with her bare hands. "One more thing," Megan said. "My brother's birthday was 2 weeks ago. I missed it because your people destroyed my ship. Cannot undo what was done. But if this alliance thing works out, maybe you can help me find him a really good present. Something alien. Something impressive." She grinned. "He always said, I never got him anything good." Catherine stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, his mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. "I believe that can be arranged." Megan tucked the crystal into her pocket and headed for the door. She paused at the threshold and looked back. General, I told you something in that cell, and I want to make sure you remember it. Humans don't know how to give up. It's not in our nature. If your empire tries to betray us, if you use this alliance as a trick to weaken us for invasion, we will never stop fighting. Never. Not until one of our species is extinct. I understand. Good. She nodded once. Then maybe we have a chance to build something that lasts. She walked out, leaving the general alone with his thoughts. 3 months later, the first human delegation arrived at the Velthary homeworld to begin formal negotiations. They brought gifts, proposals, and a message from Earth's united government, expressing cautious interest in the alliance. They also brought a vintage guitar from Megan Cole for her brother, purchased with credits that General Cawthron had personally authorized. All parties agreed. A good start. The galaxy would never be the same.